Let me say, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kachanu b'mitzvotzav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who makes us holy with mitzvot and commands us to engage in words of Torah. This week's Parsha, Parshat Naso, always fascinates me. It includes a description of the Nazir. You may not know what that is, and it's a Hebrew word, and it gets translated as Nazirite, so that doesn't help. It's a description of the Nazir, who is an individual man or woman who feels a call above and beyond what everyone else is supposed to do and takes on a particular oath, or by oath takes on some particular practices. I will read the beginning of chapter 6 of Numbers. V'yedaber Adonai el Moshe lemor. Adonai spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when either man or woman shall clearly utter a vow, the vow of a Nazir, of a Nazirite, a Nazir, to consecrate himself, to make himself holy unto the Lord. He shall abstain from wine and strong drink. He shall drink no vinegar of wine or vinegar of strong drink, neither shall he drink any liquor of grapes, nor eat fresh grapes or dried grapes. All the days of his being a Nazir shall he eat nothing that is made of the grapevine, from the pressed grapes even to the grape seed. All the days of his vow of Naziriteship, there shall no razor come upon his head until the days be fulfilled, in which he consecrates himself to Adonai. He shall be holy. He shall let the locks of the hair of his head grow long. And all the days that he consecrates himself unto the Lord, he shall not come near to a dead body. He shall not make himself unclean for his father or for his mother, for his brother, for his sister when they die, because his consecration to God is upon his head. All the days of his Naziriteship, he is holy unto the Lord." So, the Nazirite takes a vow and abstains from abstains from intoxicants, abstains from wine, abstains from grape products of any sort, does not cut his or her hair, and does not come near a dead body. And some of you may know the story of Samson. Some of you may remember that from Sunday school, the story of Samson and Delilah. And Samson was not supposed to cut his hair, and Samson was not supposed to drink any wine and would retain his strength that way. The fuller story is that even before he's born, his mother promises that he will be a Nazir. That's what this is. But that's even more unusual, is people would take this oath to do this for a set period of time, whatever period of time they themselves set. If for some reason something happened that it got violated, they would start over for that period of time. And they would bring sacrifices. At the end of that period of time, they would bring sacrifices. It's interesting to me that because in our life as Jews, so many questions about the details of Jewish observance are answered in terms of things that the entire community is to do. Such and such is what we are commanded to observe or not to observe. We as a collective, as an entire community. In the case of the Nazir, it is an individual who decides to take on a set of practices, albeit a set of practices that are set out in the Torah in detail, in that case, like so many other communal activities, but nonetheless, it is the individual who decides to take them on or not, and the individual decides for how long. Here, in the context of our communal law, is a place for an individual to adopt a personal spiritual practice if they feel so called to do. This particular way of taking on individual spiritual practice is not much done today. It may be done. I've been told that there are some Nazirites. But in the Orthodox world, it is discouraged because there's no way to bring the sacrifices required at the end of the process to conclude the status. In the non-Orthodox world, we perhaps do not have a strong enough sense of a shared communal practice to think of our communal practice as anything other than individual spiritual practice. So we're not looking maybe to take on more individual spiritual practice because we're experiencing everything we're doing that way somehow. We often feel that the larger non-Jewish community in our lives is our primary experience of community. So the particular Jewish practices we have already feel like individual practice. But this is precisely why I find this passage about the Nazir to be so fascinating. Because while in an earlier time of Jewish history, the experience of being a Nazir may have been an exceptional religious experience, I think for many Jews in modern settings, we already feel like Nazirs, just in doing the practice we are already doing. We set ourselves aside from the larger community when we take on specifically Jewish ritual practice, like keeping kosher or observing Shabbat or holidays, or counting the Omer, or not getting our hair cut during the Omer, which sounds a little more like the practices of the Nazir. But in earlier times of Jewish history, we were setting ourselves apart as a community from the rest of the society. Now, most of the time, in our experience, we are setting ourselves apart as individuals from the rest of the community around us. It's a very different experience. A very different experience when we are all keeping kosher as a group, as opposed to when we are keeping kosher and we are the only ones in the room keeping kosher. When we are all keeping kosher as a group, we are bonding ourselves together in community. When we are the only one in the room keeping kosher, our experience is more like the experience of a Nazir. Suddenly our practice of keeping kosher has to be directly grounded in our own personal calling for purpose, as a form of personal practice, at least as much, if not more than, an experience of communal bonding. These are important ideas for us to be thinking about as we work to build and sustain our own spiritual and Jewish life in the society and the setting in which we live. How do we decide what practices to take on and when and where to practice them when we are living most of those practices in isolation from others doing those practices rather than in a group? What fascinates me about this portion of Torah is not only does this section raise this question in ways that I don't think other parts of the Torah does, how do you take on personal spiritual practice? So it not only raises the question, but the passage that presents the Nazir is immediately followed by a short passage, which for me suggests for us part of a set of criteria that we might use in answering the question. even though that passage could have been placed in so many other places in the text. I'll read that short passage. It'll probably be familiar. God said to Moses, saying, Daber el Aharon, speak to Aaron and his sons, saying, Ko tivrachu et bnei Yisrael, so shall you bless the children of Israel. Amor lahem, say to them, Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, may Adonai bless you and keep you. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichonecha, may God's face shine upon you and be gracious to you. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom, may God's face lift towards you and grant you shalom. V'samu et shemi al bnei Yisrael v'ani avarchem. So shall they put my name upon the children of Israel, and I will bless them. So shall they put my name on the children of Israel, and I shall bless them. Familiar words, they get used. This is the priestly blessing. It's used often. You hear it in Jewish and in non-Jewish circles. And in Jewish circles, there's a particular ritual called duchening, which in different synagogues, different parts of the Jewish world, is said at different times. In a traditional community in Harrisburg would say it on festivals. Literally, they have all the Kohanim, literally all the priests, all the Kohanim, those who are direct descendants of the priests, would come up before the synagogue. The Levites would pour water over their hands, wash their hands, and the priests would cover their heads with their talus, and they would go like this under their talus and recite the blessing, and everyone would be told not to look. Some of you know, this is a little detour here. Some of you know about Leonard Nimoy. Leonard Nimoy adopted that because he was a Kohen, and he felt in acting his particular role that there should be some type of ceremony for that particular episode of Star Trek. So he was told, just make something up, and he did. This priestly tradition got written into some modern American folklore. But I read this and I think, I ask, what does it mean to be a blessing? What is a blessing? And I ask, how is this blessing something that actually, in ways we can recognize, has an impact on the world around us when it is invoked upon us? And to me, the obvious answer is that we need to strive to be the blessing. So the blessing is, may God bless you and keep you. May God's face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May God's face lift towards you and give you shalom. So I see this blessing not only as something that we are given the opportunity to say, so that we may in some way draw God's blessing down upon someone's head. I see it as a set of criteria that we can use to strive to live out so that God's blessing can be felt in the world, coming into the world through us, through our thoughts, words, and actions. So just as one of our prayers earlier tonight said, make us part of Torah, make us part of Torah, so we strive to be the priestly blessing. May we live in such a way so that we become a blessing for ourselves and others, and we help in the effort to repair and sustain the world. May we live in ways so that the light of God's face can be seen to shine through our own face, and we be an avenue for grace and kindness to come into the world. May we live in ways so that shalom, peace, wholeness, and harmony come into the world and be a blessing for us and everything and everyone around us. Putting this all together, this section of Torah suggests to me that living a Jewish life in our time, place, and setting is a lot like living life as a Nazir, and although we may not need to be able to adopt the specific ritual practices of the ancient Nazir, the priestly blessing which accompanies that description can provide us with some guidance for providing spiritual grounding for our own lives. In conclusion, I want to tie these thoughts to some words I heard 2 weeks ago, the week before Shavuot, in Washington, D.C. at the National Leadership Gathering and 30th anniversary celebration of Interfaith Alliance, an interfaith advocacy network for democracy, religious freedom, and diversity. These following words are from a sermon of the late Reverend Welton C. Gaddy. Reverend Welton Gaddy was a liberal Baptist preacher and minister who led Interfaith Alliance for about 15 years and died a couple years ago. And these words of his were mentioned at the 30th anniversary commemoration. And in these words, he references the LGBT experience, which for us is appropriate today because June is Pride Month. So the words of Reverend Welton C. Gaddy. At the heart of religion are rituals that encourage self-identification, blessed and then commissioned for service. I once heard my friend Myron Madden speak about meeting a small African-American girl in the hospital whose name was I Am. When Myron asked the mother about her child's name, the woman explained that her little girl's full name was I Am Christian Tucker. She went on to observe, so many people don't know who they are. I gave her a head start. Friends, let's offer such an encouraging head start to others as we build relationships in which only the noun person is important and the adjectives gay, straight, bisexual, transgender, or whatever are simply there to add richness and beauty. Please hear and heed the counsel of Henri Nouwen, a Dutch priest and professor, who said, "Listen to your life. See it for the fathomless mystery that it is, in the boredom and pain of it, no less than in the excitement and gladness. Touch, taste, smell your way to the holy and hidden heart of it, because in the last analysis, all moments are key moments, and life itself, your life, is grace." Just as I am, here is the charge I commended to you, just as you are. Let us bless each other individually and then together get on with shaping a world characterized by just laws, amazing grace, and the kind of self-giving love that is the central trait of the God who spoke from a burning bush long ago and speaks to us even now, saying, I am, and encouraging us to live and love and serve as who we are. Amen. Shabbat Shalom.